All right, folks, welcome in here to the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. We are back aboard for another week. I am the somewhat capable host, TJ Reeves. Let me welcome back my co-host. He was on vacay last week in my area. Mike Gill back aboard here on the LWOS Media Pod. You don't look tan enough. You got some sun down in West Central Florida and hanging out around the beach, the Grapefruit League of spring training, etc. Good to be back with you. Had a great conversation with Tim Brando last week talking all things March Madness, the coverage of it. Fascinating, insightful stuff. But I always love chopping it up with you, Mike Gill, on the Media Pod. How are you?
TJ, I'm good. I was in your neck of the woods. I don't have the tan I was looking for. It was a little chilly down in the Clearwater, St. Pete, Tampa trifecta down there. A little chilly. I was in Dunedin on Friday at the Blue Jay Phillies game, and it was cold on Friday.
A little nippy.
Yes, it was. I had the long sleeve on. We were searching for sun down there. But the weather was great for most of the time. A couple chilly days down there. But, back to reality. Watched a lot of college basketball. And somewhere in this conversation, everybody, stick around. I don't want to say a radical idea, but I have an idea of maybe how to expand the tournament but make it very similar to the tournament that we know.
Enhance it somehow, some way.
Yep.
He's got method to his madness.
It will include more teams, but it will keep the tournament in almost the format that we see it today.
Interesting. Now, everybody's got their own suggestions. I'm interested to hear yours. Thank you for finding us. We do this weekly. We talk sports media news, information. We bring you interviews, etc. Love the insight that Mike also brings. He and I go back and forth as we are media veterans, 25 plus years each of us, giving our different perspectives. So let me just lay out the show. We're going to talk a lot of March Madness. Obviously, Duke, very good for business for CBS, as well as all the favorite teams getting through. We've got the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight later this week. We got a reporter controversy, Mike Gill, that we've got to get to, where a reporter in the Raleigh pod of the East Regional was right there, or actually the East and the West Regional was right there when Danny Hurley came in the tunnel, the UConn coach, spewing F-bombs about the officials and the world are out to get us, essentially. And it's what UConn tried to do to the reporter after that we're going to talk about here on the Last Word on Sports Media Pod. The women's tournament takes a huge hit with the injury to one of its star players. Major League Baseball about to get underway, including some national television games that are ongoing. So speaking of baseball, the regular season always seems like it's beginning earlier and earlier now. We're going to get regular season games, on like March the 26th here to start the baseball season. So we got all of that. Thank you for finding us. Social media platforms, Mike Gill Show on YouTube, where you're seeing us. Also on our Twitter X handles. Mike is at Mike Gill Show, and I'm at Bucks Sideline Guy, BUC, Bucks Sideline Guy. Also, wherever you get podcasts, we're a podcast on the LWOS Media Pod, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. Come find us there. So let's begin with the tournament. Your thoughts? The favorites have all moved through. We don't really have a Cinderella. The ratings are up. Let's get into whatever you want to get into, Mike Gill. Let's get it going.
Well, the ratings are up as you take a look at what's happening with the ratings. And so far, the March Madness ratings are up. And I think, we always talk about the Cinderella being the story. But is it really the story? I think most people like to say that's the story, but the television ratings have always spoke differently. TNT and CBS Sports, they're delivering the NCAA's best viewership since 1993. They're averaging 9.4 million viewers through the second round here. People like the big guys. We like to say that upset was fun and that was a great story. But in the end, when Butler played Duke in the finals, that game was not well viewed. When Florida Atlantic made the championship game, that game is not well viewed. We like to talk about that story, but we don't actually like to see that story. All the big guys being here is maybe why the ratings have gone up. Yet we still like to complain that we didn't get the Cinderella.
Right, can't have it both ways. And right, all the number one seeds are still alive going into Thursday and Friday, led by Duke. Duke, as we know, the love-hate brand name, just like New York Yankees, just like L.A. Lakers, just like Alabama football. on and on down the list, when the Patriots were winning all the time or when the Boston Celtics are winning all the time, there's a love-hate thing that goes on here with Duke, and they've got the prohibitive favored number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft, Cooper Flagg, as well as a very talented team. And it would not surprise me if we see these ratings grow. You see that they're showing that the Duke, Kentucky, the Duke, Baylor, and Kentucky, Illinois window averaged 10 million people. We know this. The triple header that was on CBS Sunday started with Florida and UConn. That had over 6.5 million people watching. When they got to the Duke game with Baylor, over 9.5 million people watching. This is the middle of the day on Sunday. And so, Mike, I think it projects you're easily going to see 10 or 12 million, probably 12 million or more watching the Duke game on Thursday night. And you know that they are going to be a Saturday huge draw as a standalone game. If Cooper Flagg and Duke are in the Final Four, you're easily going to see the ratings go up to 18, 20, 22 million again watching this because of Duke. And I know that's Auburn, Houston, and Florida are the other number 1 seeds. Alabama, Michigan State, Tennessee are the number 2 seeds. But Duke is a big driving force behind this. And this is where it builds Thursday and into this weekend. Any other thought here on the numbers? And we should again qualify. They're measuring out of home, which before 2021 they did not used to. And we also should qualify as well when you're comparing things in recent history, all right, to like 2010 or 2005. Go back to the 1990s of this tournament, the late 90s of this tournament. The ratings were so much more massive. So success relative to the 2000s, yes, but TV, Mike, is so much more fragmented now. Pick up on that point that these are still massive numbers, but it's not what the channel selection was in the 90s when the numbers were so much bigger.
Well, it's relative because you had so many, you had less competition on the television back
Correct.
then. There was only so many options on TV. Now you have an endless supply of options. You also have less cable subscribers. So you have 9.4 million. It's only 60 some million cable subscribers. So I don't know. Do they count people who watch on YouTube TV? I mean, I have YouTube TV. I watch the tournament. Do I not get counted in that 9 million? I don't think I do. So, it sounds like it's a big number, that college basketball. The question is, why? Why is the tournament being watched so much? I find it interesting because there's not a lot of players. You mentioned Cooper Flagg. I don't think anybody knows who the second player is in this tournament, right? It used to be these colorful coaches. Now you have Calipari and you have Pitino, you have Izzo, but does anybody even know who the Florida coach is? Does anybody know? I mean, Bruce Pearl, Auburn, okay, I know him. Houston, Sampson, he's been around a while, but they're not these legendary coaches that told stories like the Big East coaches back in the day. So I do find it interesting that the number is big, but I do go back to, we're complaining about the Cinderellas. It seems that the big programs are driving these ratings.
And you make a great point on personalities driving this, and the NBA grabbing all of the first-year talent where they don't stay there and develop. I mean, people, it's hard to comprehend that 35 years ago, Christian Laettner stayed 4 years at Duke, and Bobby Hurley stayed 4 years at Duke. And Grant Hill, by the way, who came the year after those guys, he stayed 4 years at Duke. The culture was there. They didn't jump to the NBA. It's just a different day now with this.
With college basketball coast to coast, you're talking college basketball.
Yep.
I'm in a market where college basketball is big, but not the biggest thing. We're more of a pro sports market. But like a Duke North Carolina game used to almost stop the world. Is that
back in the day? You mean back in the day?
Yes. Is that rivalry still meaningful? Is it as big as it was? Those Big East matchups, that big Monday, they're out the window. So I don't know what story. College basketball is almost completely irrelevant from November until March 22nd, and then it's like the biggest thing going. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there are millions that join in for the month of March and the magic of March. Clearly, ESPN is trying to drive this because they're televising most of the games. Fox now, that has the deal exclusively with the Big East, actually they now share it with Peacock, with NBC. And then you have the Big Ten, which is on everything but ESPN. They have a deal with CBS. They have a deal with Fox. They have a deal with NBC to show games, including the Peacock streaming. So there's plenty out there, but I agree with you. If you quiz most people, who's the second biggest name in college basketball, they are going to struggle to come up with Janai Broome of Auburn, who would probably be that second biggest name. Is that second biggest name Caleb Love of Arizona? Is that second biggest name Jace Richardson?
North Carolina a couple of years ago.
Yes, and beat Duke in the Final Four, and now he's back playing Duke with Arizona. What about Jace Richardson, the son of Jason Richardson, the NBA player, as the freshman phenom for Michigan State? You're right. You don't know the stories as much. The coach is probably getting more attention, and that's going to segue us into Danny Hurley and UConn being beaten by Florida and what happened after the game with his behavior and the behavior of a sports information media guy in a few moments. But, I mean, if you say Izzo, everybody knows Michigan State is Izzo. Everybody knows now that Pitino's at St. John's, even though they got beat. Bill Self, Kansas, kind of the same thing. The legendary coaches, but they're getting fewer and far between because Boeheim's no longer at Syracuse. Coach K's no longer at Duke. Roy Williams is no longer at North Carolina. Jay Wright no longer at Villanova, where he won a couple of national titles. So it's just interesting on the personalities point.
There is. And listen, it's a weird situation. You have NILs. You have guys entering the portal right now. You have coaches changing in the middle of the tournament. I mean, it is like the wild, wild west college sports are. And they got to figure out a way, I think, much like the bowl season, where the bowls become irrelevant because you got guys transferring, coaches leaving, they're not coaching the bowl game. You know, Pitino, Calipari, I should say, the other night, he didn't even know when the portal, I'm sure he did, but I think he was playing it up. I mean, wait, Monday? You got a guy on his team that could be in the portal still playing in a game. I mean, how's the NCAA not cognizant enough to say, hey, listen, let's not open the portal until after the tournament's over?
To your point, it's crazy. We would never have NFL free agency going on in the middle of the playoffs in January. Would not happen. Baseball in October. You would not have free agency going on in the middle of the baseball postseason for the teams that all didn't make it. And to your point, Michigan is playing Auburn on Friday night in Atlanta, and there is a Michigan reserve player, this is confirmed on Tuesday morning, that's in the transfer portal while his team is in a Sweet 16 game.
Crazy.
Or is fielding offers. So it is kind of craziness. It has diluted things. The NCAA's done a poor job, just point blank, of reining this in and legislating it and regulating it. They're just basically sitting back and saying, hey, we'll let the Wild West go on. We'll let you guys duke it out to try to figure this out. All right, so I want to bring it back to a couple things. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I give you a
radical... You want to do your idea, Naya? You want to do your idea now?
We might as well. Okay. So, I don't know. People have been talking about expanding the tournament. 96 teams. There's been a number that's been out there.
Too many. That's ridiculous. From 68 to 96.
Okay, here's my idea. We were just in Atlantic City doing a mid-major tournament, the MAC.
Right.
You were in Indianapolis doing a mid-major tournament, the Horizon.
Correct.
I propose this. They want more big conference. You got 14 teams in the SEC in the big dance. I don't need 14 teams. I just saw the SEC tournament the week before. 14
right.
teams, preposterous. But, okay, fine. You want that many teams? What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the big conference tournaments. They're done. You're going to get 64 big conference teams from the Power Five, the Big East, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big
SEC,
10,
and the Big 10.
SEC.
Yep.
Those five, you're going to get 64 teams. And you're going to play for 4 days and pare yourself down to 16.
Interesting.
Mid-majors, which I believe there's 26 conferences.
Right.
You're going to get 64 teams and have a mid-major tournament. And you're going to pare yourself down to 16 teams. The best 16 mid-majors and the best 16 Power 5, we are now going to re-expand to 32. So if that mid-major team wins 2 games, they have a game that can get them into the Sweet 16 by beating a Power 5 conference. So now you get more teams with 2 16.
Now, I love the overall concept. Now, there's a couple of things. One, when are you starting this? Because you've got so many more games to play now, because you're now talking about in your model 128 teams, and therefore you got to eventually play 127 games. When are you starting?
I'm starting when the conference tournaments normally start. We're getting
rid
of the conference tournaments. So
the week before. All right.
The mid-major tournament would start when the mid-major conference tournaments generally start. They'll play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
The week before, roughly 10 days before.
Yes. The following week, when the major conference tournaments generally start, that is when we will start the major conference tournament, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now we have 32 teams left, and we go right to where the tournament is now.
Point of clarification for the senator from Atlantic City. Will you now say that we've got to have the 16 mid-majors all get their shot at the 16 Power 5, or do we rank them and we may have multiple mid-majors playing each other and multiple Power 5s playing each other under your new format of 32 teams? Can you clarify?
The 32 teams now get seeded by the committee.
All right.
After they play their way to the 32, the committee then seeds those 32 teams. Now, it could be, Mount St. Mary's taking on Creighton.
Right.
Whatever it is. But listen, you want more Power 5 teams in. That's what this is all about. Okay, you get 64 of them. There's 64 Power 5s. Now, the mid-majors, we did Atlantic City. Quinnipiac was the number 1 seed. They got bounced. They have no shot. Well, guess what? Now you do. Now you're in this mid-major tournament.
Interesting.
You have a chance to win 2 games, and if you win those 2 games, you are now in the field of 32, which will become...
I have another point of clarification for the senator from Atlantic City. Could we not accomplish the same thing if we redid the model and we said 32 Power 5 over here, or 34 now, 34 Power 5 over here, and 34 mid-major over here, and we keep it at 68 teams like it has been? I know more is what all the networks want, to televise more. I just wonder if we lose some people once we get beyond 68, especially if we get to 96 or under your model 128. I wonder if you lose some people. What do you think? What do you think of less 32 over here and 32 over here? Would you be amenable to that under your model?
I think 32 is not enough, because we're already complaining about there's not enough power. You put 14 teams from the SEC in. That's 14 of 32 teams. There were 50 teams from the Power 5 this year that had a winning record. 50.
Right.
So think about that. No, I think, and what this does is it opens up another window for ESPN to say, we'll buy the mid-major tournament and we'll air that on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and bang. So you're still putting 64 teams in. You're just running 2 64 teams brackets congruently to pare it down to 132 team tournament, which in the end ultimately gets us to the champion.
And you've played your way in. It's an interesting theory. It's a ton of games, though. It's 127 games under your model, my friend. That's a ton of games.
Guess what? There's still 120 games. They're just meaningless conference tournament games now that no one cares about anymore. So you're essentially replacing the conference tournament games with now these tournament games. It's half a dozen, one or the other. But what it does is it gives you more Power 5 teams, which is what they want anyway, and it allows the mid-majors, it allows more of them to have that chance. If they win 2 games,
right.
If they win 2 games in the mid-major 64 field, they're now in the big tournament with the big guys. So Mount St. Mary's, who we saw was a 6 seed, let's say they're in that tournament and they win twice, they're back. They're further along in the tournament than where they started. See, what happens is these Cinderellas win that first round game and then they're basically gone in the second round. If they win 2 mid-major games, now they're in the big tournament, and they get paired up with a Power 5 team. If they win that game, they are one of the 16 final teams left in the country.
Yeah, but some would argue, all right, just one more counterpoint, and then we'll move off of this on the last Word on Sports Media podcast. I love the back and forth. Some would argue that in this year's case, there were 31 automatic bids, 31 automatic conference tournament winners that are getting in. Take out the 5 that are the Power 5, that's 26 opportunities in all of these different conferences to just win your tournament. Like we saw, like you keep mentioning, Mount St. Mary's, where I worked Robert Morris out of Pittsburgh winning the Horizon League, but UC San Diego, in the Big West, American University in the Northeast Conference, on and on. Troy in the Sun Belt, Akron in the Mid-America Conference, Montana in the Big Sky. They all had their chance to be one of those. What was the number again? 26 non-Power 5 automatic bids. They had a chance to win their tournament. I don't dismiss your idea as either being silly or not possible. It is certainly possible. It's doable. If there's a lot more television money that would come in for it, interesting.
Well, what it would also do is, again, if you win your league, you are now one of those teams automatically in. And then the committee fills out. So 26 league champions would be in the field. And then after the 26, you fill out the rest of the bracket with at-large teams.
Right.
So now mid-majors are playing the season to become an at-large team in the mid-major bracket. Same as with the Power 5. Instead of having who wins the conference championship, if you finish in first place in your conference for the season, make the regular season mean something, you have an automatic bid into the Power 5 tournament. Because quite frankly, you have 14 teams in the SEC tournament. What did they play a tournament for? None of them played their way into the bracket because of that.
Right. The only hope was if one of the lesser teams, Texas, for example, won 2 of the games in the SEC tournament, and that's what got them in the first 4 of the NCAA tournament.
And you can make the argument that NC State the year before,
that's right. Correct.
They made that crazy run. Okay, we missed that NC State story.
There's aberrations. There's outliers. I get your point. I get your overall point.
My point is, if you win the SEC, you are into the Power 5, and then the rest of them become at-large teams. But if you put 14 teams in to the Power 5, that's only 14 of 64 with other Power 5s that they're all playing against each other. So you have 64 mid-majors, 64 Power 5s, pare it down to both Sweet 16s, and then merge that tournament into one and get yourself a champion.
I love the ambition. I don't know that it would ever be practical. It's a ton of games. There's a ton of TV outlets that would want to pay for it. I love your idea on the last Word on Sports Media podcast. Any final word?
There's a ton of games, yes, but you're already playing. Look, on the week before conference championship,
I got you.
There's games starting at noon, 2, 5, all day
in every
long.
tournament. In every tournament, yes.
In every tournament.
All right. So it's an interesting theory on that. All right, a couple more subjects on this that I promise we move on to 2 or 3 other topics. You've got the announcer pairings up. If they're seeing us on social media, on the live video, on the YouTube page, or the Twitter X handles, etc., you have the announcer pairings that are up for Thursday and Friday in the 2 sites in Newark and San Francisco Thursday, Atlanta, Indianapolis on Friday. It surprised me right off the jump that the number 1 CBS crew of Ian Eagle, Grant Hill, Bill Raftery, they're not with Duke in Newark on Thursday. They are instead in Atlanta for the South bracket. That's Auburn, Michigan, Michigan State, and Ole Miss. Does that surprise you, Mike Gill?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I agree with you. I figured Duke is going to get the top team wherever they go. And no, they did not get it this time. You're getting Michigan. Auburn is getting the NCAA championship team of Ian Eagle, Bill Raftery, and Grant Hill with Tracy Wolfson. That one's going to be on Friday night, and they're not doing double duty, obviously, because the games are in Newark on one side. They're in Atlanta, so the Duke crew is going to be in Newark, and that's Brian Anderson and Jim Jackson.
Interesting, and it's not even a CBS pairing. That's the Turner pairing. And then also in San Francisco, that's Kevin Harlan, Dan Bonner, and Stan Van Gundy. I enjoy them. I enjoy all these announced crews. And then Andrew Catalan and Steve Lapis have the Indianapolis pairings of Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee on Friday night.
Yeah,
when they whittle everything down. And again, what a gem of an assignment for Brian Anderson and Jim Jackson that they get Duke and Arizona in the second game in Newark. I'm going to tell you right now, that game is easily going to have 10 million, if not 12 million, if not more, watching that Duke-Arizona late-night game. You agree with that?
Yeah. Listen, I do agree with that. And I'll tell you, because it goes back to all of these matchups. I mean, you got big matchups pretty much all over the place. I mean, Maryland, Florida, you got a big-time, I was going to say ACC school in Maryland, but a big-time basketball school in Maryland out of the Big Ten against Florida.
It gives you the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. market, big time for Maryland to be in that game, yes.
But it gives you the Big Ten and the SEC, which right now are ruling the roost in this world. You've got that Arizona-Duke game, 2 pretty big traditional powers
Sure.
matching up against each other.
And Arizona, I just interject again, gives you Phoenix, it gives you LA. Everybody out there is going to care for the matchup. Yes.
Absolutely. Then the Friday game, we go back to the same thing where you have an SEC and a Big Ten. You got Kentucky and Tennessee, SEC rivalry there. You got Michigan, Auburn, Big Ten, SEC, and then Purdue, a Big Ten school against a number 1 seed. So almost every single matchup is giving you the big boys.
Yep. And again, enjoy all of these crews, and that doesn't even include the Westwood One crews, which we don't have in front of us, doing the national radio of the men's tournament as well. So all of that gets back up underway on Thursday and Friday and heading into the weekend. And again, the Duke matchup, if they win, and they likely will be a Saturday matchup, probably in prime time. CBS will put it in prime time on Saturday night. And I'm not sure the divvying up between CBS and Turner. I think CBS has all of the games this weekend. We'll double check on that, Saturday and Sunday for the Elite Eight. So that means that Duke and whomever they're playing on the weekend won't be the Sunday afternoon game leading into 60 minutes. That will instead have to come from the other two brackets, which again is the Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State winner. And then the other games going on, Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee, probably going to be like the maybe Auburn, Michigan State game from those two favorites, or would they put Houston against the SEC team in the late Sunday window right before 60 minutes? That game a year ago, by reference point, was Duke and NC State, the upstart NC State against Duke in the Elite Eight, and it got 15 million people watching on Sunday afternoon right before 60 minutes. I don't know that the South bracket title game or the Midwest title bracket game will get to the 13, 14, 15 million mark. Do you have a prediction on that, Mike Gill, for Sunday?
Listen, the pairings that you're going to get, they're all, I mean, as we just talked about the Sweet 16, they all give you something. And I would assume, as you just kind of hinted out, you're going to get, look, this is what happens. When you start to stack all the major conferences and the big brands up against each other, you're going to bring more and more eyeballs out there. And, you know, we've got some of the best brands out with Duke, Michigan State. You know, don't forget Tom Izzo's still alive in this one. So, yeah, Duke, Arizona playing against each other. Obviously, they get, you know, but, yeah, you've got big brands. You're going to get big ratings.
The only strange one is out in San Francisco, where it's Florida and Maryland and Texas Tech and Arkansas. You don't have a Western tie at all, and those schools are all the way out there. And is it going to get lost in the shuffle on the Thursday night with Cooper Flagg and Duke? We've spent a lot of time on that. Shall we go to a media controversy, a reporter versus team media rep controversy from this past weekend, and spice it up a little bit on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast? You want to do this here, Mike Gill? All right, so here's what happened. On Sunday, when Connecticut lost the game to Florida, or Florida beat Connecticut, whichever you prefer, that is the end of the two-time defending national champions run. They had won 13 tournament games in a row dating back to the beginning of the 2023 tournament. National title wins, obviously, in Houston and in Arizona. I was around it for both of them. They've been dominant. UConn's dominated March for the last 2 years, so now they are out. It is no secret that Danny Hurley is a polarizing figure. A lot of times he is a lunatic on the sideline with how he acts towards the officials, towards the other teams, etc. All right, so they lose the game. They are out of the tournament, and they come back in the tunnel in the Raleigh-Lenovo Center Arena. This is where NC State plays their home games, men's and women's, and the Carolina Hurricanes play hockey in that arena. And a reporter, one of several, is in that tunnel when Connecticut comes off the floor. That reporter's name is Joey Ellis. Joey Ellis is a Charlotte-based reporter, but he's there in Raleigh covering the tournament. And that's when he captures the video. And, Mike, are you about to play it here for the video audience?
I do have. This is the video followed by the Charlotte Sports Live newscast.
Okay.
Of the sportscaster.
With the reaction. So go ahead and play Hurley in the tunnel after the game. This has gone viral, but if you've not heard it and seen it, we're illuminating it now. This is after their loss to Florida Sunday.
I hope they don't do that to you, man. That's the video that's gone viral online of UConn head coach Dan Hurley voicing his displeasure with the referees and the Huskies' loss to the #1 ranked Florida Gators. Charlotte Sports Live's own Joey Ellis took that video and then was confronted by UConn Director of Communications Bobby Mullen. Mullen asked for that video that had gone viral to be removed. He then threatened Joey, saying he would, quote, ruin his life if he didn't. This was heard by multiple other reporters and staff on hand. Our management asked Mullen for a statement on the incident, and here's what he said. The lasting image of Coach Hurley leaving the court should have been his walking off the court arm in arm with the seniors, overwhelmed with emotion. Instead, a reporter who was in an area he should not have been recorded on his cell phone a private comment made to members of another coaching staff, end quote. Charlotte Sports Live and Queen City News, stand by Joey Ellis's reporting.
All right, so let's go over 2 or 3 aspects of this. The first one is, to this second, as we do this on Tuesday afternoon, there has not been anyone from the NCAA or anywhere else that said this reporter was in an area that he should not have been. So, Mike, I frequently cover the NCAA tournament, the earlier rounds, and the Final Four, and there are constantly reporters with cell phone cameras, etc., that are in the tunnel when players are coming off the floor filming them. So that in and of itself is wrong. As far as I know, there's not anything forbidden for them being in the tunnel and from them taking video. That's point number one. The second part of this is Hurley is the one acting the way he's acting, and then I want you to get in here, and it's not a private moment, a private thing. He's yelling out, as you saw in the video. And, Mike, if you want to replay the video with the sound down, go ahead while we're talking about this. He's not in a private conversation standing like with Scott Drew, the Baylor coach, over to the side and whispering and talking. He's bellowing out in the tunnel with dozens of people around, including the Baylor basketball team. That's not a private moment. So the garbage statement that Bobby Mullen and UConn put out about this was a private, it's not, there's nothing private about him bellowing out in a tunnel. And the other thing that we got to go next level about, when you go to confront the guy, and we're going to get into this Bobby Mullen and who he is in a second, and you're threatening him with his job and all of that stuff, that is next level stuff, and that should be dealt with. So I've said a lot about this, and I think you're going to try to show it to the audience again. We don't have to have the audio while you're rolling it, but this is not a private setting. He's bellowing out, Mike, would you not agree, to anybody that's around. Look at the dozens of people that are around if you're with us on video. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, no, it's not like he's obviously looking around, and I don't think he's like, hey, who's this, who's that? He's just yelling for anybody who's within an earshot. He wanted to be heard because he was frustrated. He wanted, it's like the guy who's, when he's out at the bar and he's really loud because he wants to try to engage with the people next to him because he wants to talk to somebody. Hey, what do you have? Like, that was what Dan Hurley last night. He was the drunk guy talking loud at the bar, trying to get attention because he wanted the people in that area to know that he thought his team got hosed by the officials.
All right, so a couple of other points. So Bobby Mullen is the second-year UConn director of media relations for the men's basketball program. All right? Bobby Mullen's background, because I looked this up, is he was working prior to that for the Big East Conference in their social digital department. Prior to that, he had been an assistant in the UConn media relations department working other sports, not men's basketball. So he has only recently come back to Connecticut. He's in his early 30s. And I attribute this to a couple of things. Number one, they've won all the time. They've gotten more emboldened, more empowered for Hurley to act like he acts on the sideline and what they're doing. And so as a byproduct of that, you have an early 30-something-year-old who's been on the job for a couple of years who now thinks I'm bulletproof too, and I can act however I want. And the arrogance level from everybody that I have talked to and what I've witnessed myself in dealing with the UConn people, the arrogance level has gone from like a 9.5 or a 10 to about a 27 with those guys. There were plenty of people rooting for them to get eliminated. But okay, go ahead, add something else to this.
Hurley said, I don't know if anybody saw him talk after the game, okay? After the game, he's up at the podium, and he is trying to, like, almost – I want to say apologize, but he's like acknowledging that it's been a rough year when you've won back-to-back.
Right.
And then he goes like almost arrogantly like, Well, this year I don't have to go throw the first pitch out at, every single baseball game and
ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. He brought that up as well. Yeah,
and
on and
you're
on.
like, really, you can't just say, look, I lost my cool. We lost the game. I apologize. No, he goes on to say, essentially, yeah, it's tough. We hate losing after you win the championship, the pressure. But this year will be much better for me because I don't have to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell.
And so he had given an interview to Tracy Wolfson off the court. This was after that tirade. But now the tirades out there are the comments. I won't say tirade, him yelling out in the tunnels out there. So here's the other problem I have with what we do in sports media. And we have to deal with PR people and media people all the time. I've had people come get up in my face. I don't know about you in my career about different things. So we have an early 30-something-year-old media person going to the person with the video and saying around witnesses, I'm going to ruin your life if you don't take it down. Talk about the arrogance meter being about an 18 or a 27. Who are you to go tell a member of the media who hasn't done anything incorrect, illegal, or wrong, I'm going to ruin your life?
By the way, who doesn't even live in your market? I mean, what are you going to go to Charlotte?
Raleigh, right. I'm going to ruin your life. So are you getting ready to play something here about Hurley's tearful comments with Tracy Wolfson?
Yes, this is Hurley with Wolfson after the game. This whole thing happened, and here's Dan Hurley.
Tracy Wolfson spoke with UConn head coach Dan Hurley moments ago.
Coach, I could see the emotions on your face. I know this was a difficult one. You guys had them. You fought so hard, mucked it up. You said you made it a Big East game. Yeah. What happened down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, they showed their quality. I mean, I thought we played with tremendous honor. I thought we played with the heart of a championship program and a program that's gone back to back. And, for a team to, to end, what we really wanted to do, they were going to have to put us down. And, obviously a worthy opponent like that, there's honor in the way we went out.
You mentioned that tournament streak, what you guys have been able to do. What did you tell your team in there?
Just love them. I mean, just love them. This year has been a real battle. We've battled, and we've had to battle our own battle, and at times, I don't think we liked each other a whole lot with some of the things we had to go through together. But I don't think I'll ever love a team more than how hard they fought for what we were trying to accomplish and for the honor they played with today.
Appreciate the time.
All right, so he's contrite there. He's talking about his team. He's emotional. That all of that is fine. Let's bring this back, though, to the media person, which is Bobby Mullen. I'm going to ruin your life to the reporter. All right, so by the way, the video is still up there. The video's gotten over 2 million views now socially. It went everywhere. It got shared everywhere. And we should emphasize, I know I'm repeating things, this is something that was out in the open that everybody could see and hear in that tunnel, what he's yelling to Scott Drew and the Baylor team that's standing there waiting to go out on the floor to play the rest of the game. There's numerous dozens of people that are standing around hearing this. It's not a private moment. And from my standpoint, Mike, I'm going to lay this on you and tell me what you think. I think it is incumbent on the UConn athletic director, David Benedict, which I'm sure they've already had a conversation with Bobby Mullen. And if not him, then the university administration and even the Big East, who he used to work for with Val Ackerman, to make very clear to this person that if you ever do anything like that again, you're going to deal with all of us and you may not have a job to go to a media member. That's my thought. I think it should be that strong. And I think it should come from his administration. And if not from them, then from the Big East. You can't act like this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like the fact that you're threatening the guy because you don't like the fact that your coach acted in a way that embarrassed your program. That's what it comes down to. The coach, who, by the way, I'm very conflicted because I love Hurley as a coach. I love how passionate he is.
Sure.
The emotion that he shows in that moment, you can see how much it kills him. And, his father coached here in New Jersey. He's a legendary high school coach here. The son, the brother,
Bobby,
he's over at Arizona. I mean, these
Arizona
guys,
State, right.
Arizona State, right.
But the bottom line is Bob Hurley is a vastly respected individual at St. Anthony's High School with all the national championships and all the great players, revered as a high school coach. And then you have the son, the younger son, that acts the way that he acts. And there's a lot of people saying, how does Bob Hurley not get some of that under control as his dad? Again, you got to be your own man as an adult.
Oh, his dad was a fiery guy, too. And
he was fiery, but he was not like lunatic behavior. And of course, one other factor is when you win all the time, Mike, you can get away with doing things. And then when you lose, you have to be contrite, you have to be different, etc.
Well, I keep this in mind, too. The father was a high stature. The other brother, Danny, Bobby, excuse me, was the better known player.
Of course. National championship player. Right.
Duke. People forget Danny. He was a player at Seton Hall, but not at the same level. So I feel like there's a part of him now that's saying, I'm the guy. My dad,
right.
Bobby, no, now it's me, right? That I'm the guy. This is what I was talking about, though, where he spoke after the game about the whole throwing out the first pitch at games. And, like, this is where – and you can see the emotion, but I'm like, all right, man, really? This is Hurley, Danny Hurley after the game.
Post-game press conference after the Florida lost.
Yes.
I didn't even – I would say going into the year, there's a lot, of – rewiring and things I got to do in the off season, because you just get caught up in this tidal wave of success that we've had, and you just you lose perspective. You struggle with the ego at times because you've been on this incredible run. So it'll be nice to get to a normal off season and just get back to, myself as a coach and not have to throw out first pitches. And you should only be ringing stock market bells and throwing out first pitches when you win the major championship. So, I won't have to do things like that. I'll be able to just kind of, focus on the upcoming season, make better decisions with all aspects of coaching. But yeah, when I saw when I was asked about the 13 in a row, you had no idea the company and what we've accomplished. So you could take some solace in that. But today was to be that close to getting to a Sweet 16 and knowing, that the 2 seed lost yesterday and this bracket could have really opened up for us. And we knew that going in once we saw the 2 seed lose.
Again, I didn't perceive that as overly arrogant. He's just bringing some things up after the loss. I get you on your point.
No, I'm saying, well, and here's the thing. Like, he suggested, he admits he struggled with his ego, the fact that they won back-to-back. But this is the thing. It's almost as if he is so – he almost can't enjoy the winning. Like, you almost feel bad for him because he can't even enjoy it enough to be satisfied that he won because that
he's a complicated, fiery guy. We know that. They've had all the success they've had, and now they're eliminated, and now they're done. And the interesting thing is he'll probably be on CBS and Turner this weekend. Watch. They'll have him on. They'll be talking to him. And certainly at Final Four time, they're going to be talking to him. So stay tuned.
From the guy who a week or two ago, and we talked about this on my radio show, he's saying that he's got the NIL problems. He said, half my team is already in the NIL. They know they're leaving next year. Talking about the difficulties, and he talked about, like, there's times we didn't like each other in this season. It is a very conflicting world to be in right now.
All right. But again, we say on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast, go Joey Ellis, go. He's a reporter in Charlotte. And again, I wait for the other shoe to drop here about this Bobby Mullen, not a very experienced person in that role. Because there's a right way and a wrong way to deal with people. I have, and Mike, you've been doing this a long time. I have a 30-plus year career on the local and national level, working in the NFL, working for different outlets for Major League Baseball, major college football and basketball, and dealing with media people, dealing with teams, and dealing with people. There's no room for that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff, that should be stamped out immediately and made clear to him. You will go back to covering the digital part of women's golf if you're not careful with how you're acting in a prized role like this. And
that role, their job is to do everything they can.
You will be covering swimming or field hockey coming up that doesn't have 1/20th of the interest of this if you're going to act like that and threaten a reporter like that. So there you go. We always love a good back and forth, the tete-a-tete of the media versus the teams that they work for and people trying to squelch things and players and coaches and whoever's going after the media. Let me put it to you this way. It never ends well for the GM, coach, the player, or whoever that's going to go after the reporter or go after the media, because eventually you start to lose or you start to have problems or something goes on, and they're going to write and talk about it endlessly, and there's nothing you can do about that. So,
no doubt. Yeah. And listen, in the end, to finish that off, the job of that guy is to do everything they can to accommodate and make sure that their program is being put in a good light, okay? You come over, you ask, hey,
that's right,
can I help you with anything? Pronunciations, is there any facts,
that's right,
stats, something that you need? Is there a little something I can do to help your broadcast? And in the end, if your guy acts like that, it's his job to talk to his guy and say, hey, I can't help you out if you're going to act like that. Therefore, sorry, buddy, not to attack the guy who happened to be standing there when your coach acted in a way that he wanted everybody to hear.
And again, we'll finish up and move on. It's not as if Bobby or Joey Ellis, the reporter, Bobby Mullen is the media person. It's not as if he was in an inappropriate, quiet place, by a locker room, in a locker room. He's in a tunnel where he's allowed to be there and allowed to take video. And I say again to the audience, this goes on all the time in the NCAA tournaments where there are reporters in the tunnel witnessing things as teams come off the floor or go on the floor. This doesn't even include the reporters that are all in the arena with their phones out as you're leaving the court or coming on the court, and they're filming and putting stuff up. So we covered that. We gave it a bunch. Listen, we've been here a little bit. Do you have anything else, or you want to move on to baseball?
Yeah, I want to move on, but just to close out, they're trying to make this almost as if the reporter, Ellis, reported something that he was told was off the record, which is not
right. Or is in a completely inappropriate area and is somehow snooping and recording something that he shouldn't have recorded that's completely out of line and in violation of the media rules.
Right.
Again, as we do this on Tuesday afternoon, there's not anybody from the NCAA that's come out and said he shouldn't have been there, he shouldn't have been filming. Hello. All right, on to Major League Baseball, which does get underway this week. You mentioned you were at spring training this week. Spring training going on in Florida and Arizona. A lot of the teams have now gone to play an exhibition game in other cities, and we're about to have opening day on Thursday and Friday here for Major League Baseball. Actually, the doubleheader on Thursday that will be on ESPN, you're showing on the screen. Go over that, Mike Gill, as Joe Buck makes his return to Major League Baseball broadcasting, this time with ESPN after being away a couple of years from Fox and doing the National Game of the Week and the playoffs and the World Series. He's back, and the number one Sunday night team is back with the Yankee opener and the Dodger opener. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, you mentioned Buck. I mean, after a couple-year hiatus from baseball, obviously leaving Fox, he has not done any baseball at the national level, and here he is doing the opener, Yankees and Brewers, and he's going to work with Joe Girardi and Bill Schroeder. So they're going to go with one Brewer announcer, analyst, and a Yankee analyst to kind of be a part of that. And I think it's a one-time only for Buck. He has said before he really doesn't want to do it. He hasn't had any interest in it, but for whatever reason, this one time only, he has decided to kind of do this. And then you're going to get the Sunday Night Baseball crew last year of Sunday Night Baseball. Ravitch, Cone, Eduardo Perez, Buster Olney. That'll be the world champion Dodgers and the Tigers. And, of course, the Dodgers have already played a couple of games here, but this will be
in Japan, right? They played in Japan, right?
Yes, final season of Sunday Night Baseball. Mike Cousins and Doug Glanville are going to be on ESPN Radio, by the way, for Sunday Night Baseball. But, yeah, Joe Buck being back is probably one of the more intriguing stories of the whole opener.
And he's already said they're going to do tributes to Bob Uecker, who passed away in the offseason at age 90 and was such a tremendous figure for the game and for the Milwaukee market especially. So they're going to do that. It is interesting, bring it back to Sunday Night Baseball in the last year of Sunday Night Baseball, that Carl Ravitch hinted on a show earlier this weekend, I think a Sports Business Journal interview and show, that he doesn't believe that it's over completely for ESPN's relationship with Major League Baseball, nor does he believe that Sunday Night Baseball is off the table. He thinks they're still talking. He even admitted, I'm paraphrasing in the interview, maybe it's the romantic in me that wants us to stay together, but it's been 35 years. This is the 36th year of ESPN's relationship with Major League Baseball. As it stands, they've opted out of the deal. There is no deal for 2026. But Carl Ravitch was saying that in advance of this Dodger broadcast that's going to kick off the season with the defending champs. Go ahead.
I would agree, by the way. I just don't know where baseball goes from here. Do they stick their tail between their legs and say, ESPN, take us back? I mean, where are they going with this Sunday night baseball package? There's still a playoff package out there. Maybe one of the streamers say, we'll take the playoff package, we'll take the home run derby, but do they want Sunday night baseball every week? So maybe ESPN gets back in Sunday night baseball. Do they want to give up the playoffs? I don't know, but I agree with Ravitch. I don't see a spot for MLB to land, and I ultimately think maybe they opt back in at a lower price for the final couple of years of that deal. They opted out early of that deal, so there was 2 more years left. They opted out. Maybe they get back into that deal and they renegotiate the price. I don't see where Sunday Night Baseball goes.
Maybe their own network. Maybe they go back to Turner or another partner on cable. Maybe they rework their deal with Fox as well, where Fox gets a national standalone Sunday night game on FS1 or on Fox, because, again, you got to deal with the NFL season. Once you come to September, you got to deal with the NFL, you got to deal with college football, et cetera, for their baseball packages. All right, a couple of other interesting things. In my market, you were just down here, the Tampa Bay Rays, speaking of the Yankees, have now taken over the Yankee spring training facility, Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. That's their new home, displaced by the hurricane-damaging Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg. So the Rays will play their first ever regular season game in Tampa on Friday against the Colorado Rockies in the Yankees minor league park. I mean, Mike, this is the bizarro world. I drove by Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, right by Raymond James Stadium where the Buccaneers play, and they're doing the total makeover. I drove by on Monday to have all the Rays paraphernalia up in the Yankee spring training home. They'll occupy it for this entire season. Beyond this season, we don't know where they're going to play, in Tampa or otherwise. So that's interesting that that's on Friday. History, novelty with that. And the Oakland A's, by the way, will play in Sacramento this year and for the next 3 years while they try to figure out, are they going to be in Las Vegas or not? They're out of Oakland. The A's play the Seattle Mariners, Mike, to open the season this weekend. They will then play on Monday in the home opener in Sacramento. Are we still calling them the Oakland A's? Are we calling them the Sacramento A's? Are we calling them the Bay Area A's? The NoCal A's? I don't know what we're calling them, but the A's will play the Chicago Cubs in the Sacramento minor league ballpark coming Monday for the first ever game there, Mike Gill.
Yeah, officially they have no they do not have a
city, a town, right?
They'll
just be the Athletics, the A's.
That's correct.
So they're going to play in the minor league ballpark, and Monday is their opener on TV. You'll see a lot of attention about that as well. Did we leave anything else out? What else about baseball or anything else?
I'm interested in this because the A's haven't drawn for years. Now you're playing in a ballpark that's so small that maybe it feels different, feels better.
Right, intimate.
I was at TD Ballpark in Dunedin on Friday, and the Blue Jays played games down in Florida during the COVID season. And I had people that were like, hey, it was awesome to go to a MLB regular season game sitting in a stadium of this size. Some markets, Tampa's one of them. They don't draw well. Can they get 11,000 people a night to sit out?
It's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts. The novelty of it. And when these bigger teams come in, it's going to be crazy. They're going to have to deal with rain outs. You mentioned that. You're going to have to deal with heat. They're not going to have any problems fielding it and having fans come to the 11,000 seat ballpark in Tampa. Right. I think it'll be electric. We'll see.
Exactly. So how much different of an atmosphere is that going to be for the Rays, who generally have no atmosphere for a game? And now they're getting sellout crowds. A lot of these ballparks that are getting built, they're actually building them smaller. You're getting in like the 34,000 seat.
Not even. A lot of them, like in the upper 20s. The new Truist Park in Atlanta, I think, is like 29,000 or 30,000. You're right, smaller.
Back in the day, in those 70s and 80s, you were building these 60,000 seat mausoleums because they were used for football. Here in Philly, the ballpark holds about 45,000, somewhere in that. But I think some of the way to go is, even smaller and smaller, get into that 28,000 range.
I'm just looking here. The Sutter Health Park, which is the Sacramento venue, has reportedly 14,000 seats. So that's more than what Steinbrenner Field has, about 11,700 seats, plus a right field kind of party area, standing room only area. There has been talk that they would maybe put temporary seats in the Tampa facility out beyond the left field wall. They could put 1,000 bleachers, something like that. For that, stay tuned. That's is that the Sacramento Park where they're going to be playing?
Yep.
Reported that doesn't look like 14,000 to me. Maybe it's two levels. They're talking about 14,000 capacity for the Sacramento Park. And again, the A's, the Athletics, are playing there Monday with the Cubs for their opener. The Rays opener is with the Rockies on Friday in this new facility, in Steinbrenner facility that they've overmade. That's been the Yankees spring training home for 30 years, going back to the mid-'90s. The Rays and Major League Baseball paying the New York Yankees $16 million to use that facility to turn it into a Major League facility. I don't know what the Athletics and Major League Baseball are having to pay in Northern California, but it's interesting. In the two Bay areas, we got displaced teams. Anything else? Did we leave anything else out? Start of MLB, college basketball, anything else on the sports media landscape that you wanted to touch on, or are we pretty well good?
Think that's good. I have been to Steinbrenner Field before. Not my favorite spring. Doesn't have a spring training feel to it. Very sterile, I would say.
Interesting, but it has all the Yankee. It's crazy that all the Yankee memorabilia, all the stuff outside, the legendary little courtyard with all the little mock monuments and all the stuff, and the Yankee gift shop that's there. That's presumably now going to be a Tampa Bay Rays gift shop. It's crazy. The home of the Yankees, there it is. We're showing it to the video audience. They were putting the RAYS with the logo over the Yankees on the signage on the inside of the arena. They've changed the outside with Rays players on the facility. It's crazy what they've undergone.
Yeah, I would just say, I've been to a lot of spring training facilities. The Yankees, it's very reminiscent of Yankee. It's a small version of Yankee Stadium. It's kind of sterile. There's not a lot of atmosphere there. You go up the road to Clearwater where the Phillies play, and it's a party. Place is crazy. It's packed. Go down to TD Ballpark. It's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved at TD Ballpark. So, but it's a small little place, TD is, where the Yankees have this big mausoleum look to it, but not a lot of atmosphere there.
Interesting. All right. So we gave you a lot here. Any other opinions and takes, we'll share them out socially. Mike Gill, have a good rest of the week. Let's see what happens with all the games. How's your bracket feeling, by the way? I have all my Elite Eight still alive. All of my Final Four, therefore, still alive. But why do I get the feeling we're going to see some upsets before we get to San Antonio in the men's bracket?
Are there upsets anymore? I mean, a 5 and a 1, what's the difference?
Well, I mean, if an Arkansas makes the Final Four, that's a 10 seed. If that one happens. If somebody like BYU, if Ole Miss find a way in,
John Calipari coached team with DJ Wagner, who was like the number one recruit in the country playing for him, along with Billy. I called games in high school for Wagner and Billy Richmond. They both played for Camden High and went to Kentucky with Calipari. He took them both to Arkansas. He's not that big of a Cinderella story.
I'm with you on that. Let's see what happens with the men's tournament. Women's tournament Final Four coming here, ESPN, and the women's Final Four in Tampa Bay coming up. Mike, have a good week. Lots of good stuff here, including your idea about expanding the tournament and how. Love all of that. Again, follow, subscribe on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. Find us on social media. If you're hearing the pod, find us on social media. Mike Gill Show's YouTube channel and the social media outlets of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast.